I stared at the resignation letter on my desk, my hands trembling slightly as I signed my name, Olivia Mitchell. After 15 years of working at Mitchell Industries, I was finally breaking free. The family company my grandfather had built from nothing, the empire my father had expanded, and the legacy my older brother Marcus was destined to inherit, I was walking away from it all. The corner office I'd occupied for the past 5 years felt suffocating. Despite its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan's skyline, the space had always seemed to shrink around me, especially during board meetings where my ideas were consistently overlooked in favor of Marcus's more traditional approaches. A knock on my door interrupted my thoughts. "The board is ready for you," Jessica, my assistant, announced quietly. She'd been with me for 7 years, one of the few people who truly understood what I was about to do. I gathered my papers and straightened my blazer. Time to face the firing squad. The Mitchell Industries boardroom hadn't changed since my grandfather's time. The same mahogany table, the same leather chairs, the same oil painting of our founder hanging prominently on the wall. As I walked in, 12 pairs of eyes turned to me, but only 3 mattered. My father's disappointed glare, my brother's smug smile, and my mother's carefully neutral expression. "Olivia," my father Richard Mitchell spoke first, his voice carrying the weight of 4 decades as CEO. "We've reviewed your proposal. Surely you understand how ridiculous this sounds." I remained standing, refusing to take my usual seat at the far end of the table. "There's nothing ridiculous about wanting to modernize our approach, Dad. The market is changing. If we don't adapt, The market," Marcus interrupted, leaning back in his chair, my grandfather's chair. "You mean your little pet project? Digital transformation? Cloud computing?" "Mitchell Industries has survived for 60 years doing things our way." "Surviving isn't thriving," I countered, pulling up the presentation I'd prepared. "Our market share has dropped 15% in the last 2 years. Our biggest clients are moving to more innovative competitors. If we don't embrace digital transformation now, Enough." My father's hand slammed down on the table. "Mitchell Industries doesn't need transformation. We need stability, tradition, proven methods." I looked around the room at the board members who'd watched me grow up. "Is that what you all think? That we should just keep doing things the same way until we become obsolete?" The silence was deafening. Even those who secretly agreed with me wouldn't dare speak against Richard Mitchell, especially not with Marcus sitting there like a crown prince waiting for his coronation. "Well," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart, "then you leave me no choice." I pulled out my resignation letter. Effective immediately, I'm stepping down from my position as Chief Innovation Officer. The room erupted. Board members whispered among themselves, my mother's perfect composure cracked slightly, and my father's face turned an alarming shade of red. But it was Marcus who spoke first, his laughter cutting through the chaos. "You're quitting? Over this?" He stood up, straightening his custom-made suit. "And what exactly do you plan to do, little sister? Start your own company? Compete with Mitchell Industries?" I met his gaze steadily. "Actually, yes." The laughter died in his throat. My father stood up so quickly his chair rolled backward. "Have you lost your mind? Everything you are, everything you have, is because of this company. Because of this family." "No," I corrected him, "everything I am is because of my own hard work. Work that's been ignored, dismissed, and undervalued for 15 years. "You ungrateful my father started, but I cut him off. "I've already secured funding. I have a business plan, potential clients "Who would never work with you if they knew you were betraying Mitchell Industries," Marcus sneered. "Face it, Olivia. You're nothing without the Mitchell name." I smiled, thinking of the contracts already signed under my mother's maiden name, Stewart. "We'll see about that. If you walk out that door," my father's voice was cold, "don't expect to come back. Ever." I looked at my mother, seeing a flicker of something fear, in her eyes before she looked away. Then I turned to the painting of my grandfather, remembering his words from years ago. "Sometimes, sweetheart, the bravest thing you can do is start over." "Goodbye, Dad." I placed my resignation letter on the table. "I hope you remember this moment." Marcus followed me to my office, watching as I packed my personal belongings into a single box. "You'll fail," he said, leaning against the doorframe. "You'll come crawling back within 6 months, begging for your old job." I picked up my box, walking past him. "Goodbye, Marcus." "You'll be nobody without us," he called after me. "Nobody." The elevator ride down 60 floors gave me time to breathe to steady my nerves. In the lobby, Jessica waited with her own box of belongings. "You don't have to do this," I told her. She smiled. "Are you kidding? I wouldn't miss this for the world." Outside, New York summer air hit us like a wall of heat. I looked up at the Mitchell Industries building, my family's legacy, my golden cage for the past 15 years. "Ready?" Jessica asked. I nodded, hailing a taxi. Time to build something of our own. The next 6 months were a blur of 18-hour workdays, endless meetings, and countless cups of coffee. I'd rented a small office in Brooklyn, nothing like my corner suite at Mitchell Industries, but it was mine. Stewart Digital Solutions, named after my mother's maiden name, started small but grew quickly. My experience at Mitchell Industries had taught me what large companies really needed, not just digital transformation but a complete rethinking of how they operated in the modern world. We secured our first major client within 2 months, a mid-sized manufacturing company that Mitchell Industries had dismissed as too small to bother with. When that company's efficiency increased by 40% after implementing our solutions, others started noticing. By month 4 we had to move to a larger office. By month 6 we had 30 employees and a waiting list of clients. I kept my identity carefully hidden, operating as Stewart. The business world knew me only as a promising newcomer with an uncanny understanding of traditional industries' needs. Every time Mitchell Industries lost a client to us, Marcus would send out angry emails about loyalty and tradition. I saved each one, printing them out and keeping them in a folder labeled Motivation. Then came the day that changed everything. I was reviewing quarterly reports when Jessica burst into my office, her face flushed with excitement. "Olivia, you need to see this." She handed me her tablet, open to a financial news article. The headline made my heart stop. "Mitchell Industries faces crisis as major clients jump ship." I skimmed the article, taking in phrases like falling market share, and failure to modernize, and seeking new leadership. But one detail caught my eye. They were planning to hire a new chief technology officer to help modernize their operations. "There's more," Jessica said, pulling up another email. "We just received a resume for our senior executive position. You'll never guess who it's from." I looked at the name on the application and couldn't help but laugh. Marcus Mitchell, my brother who'd sworn I'd be nothing without the family name, was applying for a job at my company. And he had no idea who he'd be working for. Jessica watched me carefully. "The interview slots are open next week. Should I schedule him?" I leaned back in my chair, thinking of all the times Marcus had dismissed my ideas, belittled my achievements, and claimed I'd be nothing without him. Now here he was unknowingly begging me for a job. "Schedule it for Monday," I said, a smile playing on my lips. "I think it's time for a family reunion." Monday morning arrived with a weight of anticipation. I stood in my corner office at Stewart Digital Solutions' new headquarters, straightening my Chanel suit, a small indulgence I'd allowed myself after our first $1 million contract. The view wasn't as high as my old Mitchell Industries office, but somehow I could see further. "Marcus Mitchell has arrived," Jessica announced through the intercom. "He's 15 minutes early." I smiled, remembering how he used to mock my habit of arriving early to meetings. "How does he look?" "Different," Jessica replied. "No custom suit today. He actually seems nervous. Put him in conference room A. Let him wait." I spent the next 30 minutes reviewing his resume, though I hardly needed to. Every accomplishment listed was something I'd witnessed firsthand, many of them projects I'd actually spearheaded while he took the credit. The irony wasn't lost on me. At exactly 9:15 I walked into the conference room. Marcus sat with his back to the door, his shoulders tense under his off-the-rack suit. The past 6 months hadn't been kind to him, his hair had more gray and he'd lost weight. "Mr. Mitchell," I said coolly, watching him stand and turn. "Thank you for coming in today." The moment of recognition was everything I'd imagined. His face went from professional smile to shock to disbelief in the span of seconds. "Olivia. Actually, it's Ms. Stewart here." I sat down at the head of the table, gesturing for him to do the same. "Or did you forget that's Mom's maiden name?" He remained standing, his face flushing red. "This is impossible. You own Stewart Digital Solutions." "Sit down, Marcus." My voice carried the authority of someone used to being obeyed. Unless you'd prefer to end this interview now? He sank into his chair, looking like someone had just pulled the world out from under his feet. When? Let's review your application, shall we? I opened his file. You're applying for our senior executive position. Impressive resume. Though I notice you left out some details about your current situation at Mitchell Industries. This is a joke, he muttered. You're doing this to humiliate me. Actually, I'm doing this because you applied for a job. I met his gaze steadily. Unless you'd like to explain to our board why Mitchell Industries' market share has dropped 40% under your leadership? The fight seemed to drain out of him. You knew, he said quietly. All this time, you knew what was happening to the company. I warned you, I replied, my voice neutral. I warned all of you. Digital transformation wasn't just a pet project, Marcus. It was survival. He ran a hand through his graying hair. Dad's sick, he said suddenly. The stress. After we lost Apex Industries to your company, though we didn't know it was yours then, he had a minor heart attack. I felt a twinge of concern but kept my expression professional. I'm sorry to hear that. How's Mom taking it? He hesitated. He asks about you. Every Sunday dinner she looks at your empty chair. The same chair I sat in while you and Dad dismissed every idea I ever had? I raised an eyebrow. The same dinners where you both explained why I'd never understand business the way you did? Marcus had the grace to look ashamed. We were wrong, he admitted, the words seeming to physically pain him. Everything you predicted. It all happened exactly as you said it would. I leaned back, studying my brother. The arrogant crown prince was gone, replaced by a man who finally understood how wrong he'd been. Why did you apply here, Marcus? The truth. He took a deep breath. Because Stewart Digital Solutions is the only company successfully modernizing traditional industries without destroying them. Does your methods work? Because. He looked down at his hands. Because I need help. You need help, I repeated slowly. Like I needed help when I proposed these exact solutions 2 years ago? Olivia, please. His voice cracked slightly. Mitchell Industries is dying. Dad's too sick to run things. I'm in over my head and our biggest clients are all talking to other firms. You need me, I finished for him. The sister you said would be nobody without the Mitchell name. The silence stretched between us, heavy with 2 decades of rivalry, resentment, and regret. Finally, Marcus spoke again, his voice barely a whisper. I was wrong. About everything. You've built something extraordinary here all on your own. Meanwhile, I'm watching our family's legacy crumble because I was too proud to admit I didn't have all the answers. I stood up, walking to the window. Below, New York City bustled with its usual energy, unaware of the drama unfolding in this room. Do you know what the hardest part was, Marcus? It wasn't starting over. It wasn't building this company. It was knowing that my own family had so little faith in me that they couldn't even imagine I might succeed without them. I know, he said quietly. And I'm sorry. Truly sorry. I turned back to face him. Stewart Digital Solutions doesn't hire based on family connections. If you want a position here, you'll have to earn it. Starting at the bottom. His head snapped up. You'd actually consider hiring me? As a junior consultant, I specified. No executive title. No corner office. You'll report to people younger than you, work longer hours than you're used to, and prove yourself just like everyone else here has to. He swallowed hard. Yes, whatever it takes. I pressed the intercom. Jessica, please bring in the standard employment contract. Then I looked at Marcus. One more thing. Dad needs to know who he's dealing with. If Mitchell Industries wants Stewart Digital Solutions' help, they need to know exactly who they'll be answering to. Marcus nodded slowly. He won't take it well. No, I agreed, but he'll have to learn. Just like you did. The next week I walked into Mitchell Industries for the first time in 6 months. The security guard did a double take when he saw me, but my old badge still worked. Nothing had changed in the lobby. Same marble floors, same giant logo, same portrait of my grandfather. The boardroom, however, felt different. My father sat at the head of the table, looking smaller than I remembered. His illness had aged him, but the fire in his eyes hadn't dimmed. When I walked in, those eyes widened in shock. Hello, Dad, I said calmly. I believe you wanted to meet with the CEO of Stewart Digital Solutions? The silence was absolute. Board members who dismissed me for years now sat up straighter. My mother, sitting beside my father, pressed a hand to her mouth. And my father, for the first time in my life I saw him completely speechless. Olivia, he finally managed. You built the company that's been taking your clients? Yes. I took my brother's old seat, my grandfather's chair. Now, shall we discuss how to save Mitchell Industries? What followed was the longest board meeting of my life. I laid out exactly what needed to happen: complete digital transformation, management restructuring, and a merger between Stewart Digital Solutions and Mitchell Industries. My company would take the lead, with the Mitchell name becoming a subsidiary of Stewart Digital Solutions. This is outrageous, my father finally exploded. You expect me to hand over my company to you? After you abandoned us? No, Dad, I met his gaze steadily. I expect you to save your company by accepting help from the daughter you never believed in. The choice is yours. My mother spoke for the first time. Richard, she said softly, listen to her. Please. The board voted overwhelmingly in favor of my proposal. Even my father, after hours of argument, had to concede it was the only way forward. As people filed out of the room, he remained seated, staring at the contract he'd just signed. Why didn't you tell me? He asked quietly. When you left. Why didn't you tell me what you were planning? I gathered my papers calmly. Would you have believed me? 6 months ago, you couldn't even believe I was capable of understanding modern business practices. He looked older than I'd ever seen him. I was wrong, he admitted. About everything. Yes, I agreed, you were. But here's the thing about being wrong, Dad, you can learn from it. Marcus is. Will you? Standing up, I walked to my grandfather's portrait. You always said he built this company from nothing. Well, I did the same thing. The only difference is I did it without the Mitchell name. I did it as a Stewart. Your grandfather would be proud, my mother said from the doorway. He always said you were the one most like him. I turned to her, seeing years of quiet support in her eyes. The Stewart women, I said softly, remembering my grandfather's words. We build our own legacies. The merger made headlines. Stewart Digital Solutions acquires Mitchell Industries. A new chapter in tech innovation. The article mentioned the mysterious family connection between the companies, but I didn't hide it. Let everyone know that the daughter they said would be nobody had become somebody entirely on her own. Marcus started his new job the following Monday, sharing a cubicle with recent college graduates. He worked harder than I'd ever seen him work, slowly earning the respect of his colleagues. My father, after recovering from his health scare, took on an advisory role, finally learning to listen more than he spoke. A year later, I sat in my office, now in a building that bore both the Stewart and Mitchell names, looking at a framed copy of that resignation letter. Jessica knocked on my door carrying a familiar folder. Your brother's application for project manager, she said, placing it on my desk. He's completed all the requirements, earned stellar reviews from his supervisors. I smiled, thinking of how far we'd all come. Schedule the interview for Monday. Same conference room? No, I decided, use my office. It's time for a real family meeting. The nobody had built an empire, saved her family's legacy, and proved that sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your critics. It's succeeding so spectacularly that they have no choice but to admit they were wrong. And as I looked out over the city that had witnessed my transformation from overlooked daughter to powerful CEO, I couldn't help but think that sometimes being nobody is the perfect way to become somebody extraordinary.